Well, around 2000, I think it was around 2009, and my friend Mark and I were sitting in a pub in Islington. He said he just made a recording studio in his flat, and had I ever written any songs? And I said, well, kind of. So we went over and we started recording things. And I'd always been mucking around with guitars, but I didn't think I had a finished idea. Anyway, we went and just sort of made an attempt at recording things. We managed to make a track. We couldn't find the title for it, so we called it Colin. Probably after the dog in Blackadder, and it was kind of alright. It was really an interesting process, and we carried on. And I think the second song we wrote was called One Step from Tokyo, and another friend of ours called Angus, at least if I remember rightly, this is the story. A friend of ours called Angus was releasing a compilation CD from any bands that had anything to do with his pub, which was called the Mucky Pub, also in Islington. I should say actually that my friend Mark has a chain of record shops called Flashback in London, and the main shop, I think back then it was certainly the main shop, and it was up the road from the Mucky Pub. So Angus was releasing a compilation, and we managed to finish this track called One Step from Tokyo to be included on this compilation. And so that was the first. We had to find a name, and so we were sort of going through a million different names. We couldn't find it, and eventually we came up with this very convoluted name called Red Horses of the Snow. And it was supposed to be a kind of image of power and delicacy, and it was kind of the fashion at the time to have long convoluted names, so it was fine. And then we carried on recording, and we did, I don't know, I guess we had around 10 or 11 songs, and Mark said he wanted to release it, and would release it through Flashback on the Flashback label, which is not uncommon because I think Reckless Records had their own label, and often record shops, as a sideline or as an expansion, start their own record labels and release records. So we ended up releasing it on this Flashback label, and I think it was pretty good, and we got reviews, and we got, I think, 3 stars in Q, and we got 4 stars in, I think, Record Collector, and I think Uncut. And it was generally sort of, yeah, what does it Wikipedia say? Generally favourable reviews. It meant that Mark had also started the label, and he released some other records, including the unreleased second album from a band called Levitation, who were my favourite band of the 90s. I was even part of Mark and I were both part of a Facebook group to try and get this record released. So to have had anything to do with the release of the second Levitation album, which is amazing, called Meanwhile Gardens, is like the greatest privilege of my life. It's just a great thing that happened. So we released that first album, and then we decided we should put a band together to try and play live. And Graham Murphy, who worked with Mark in Flashback, and is a great guitarist, and he'd been saying, we've got to play live. So I said, well, will you play live with us? And he said yes. And we managed to persuade this great drummer called Mark Davidson to come and play with us, even though I think he was in about 5 different bands already. So we rehearsed in the basement we rehearsed all over the place. And managed to get play some songs live.
Awesome.
And we played, I don't know, 5 or 6 gigs at the Buffalo Bar, at the Mucky Pub, the Ivy House. There were others, but I can't remember. Oh, in the basement at Flashback, in the Shoreditch Flashback. It was really difficult to sustain it because I had small children, and it just got really, it was too much to do. So it kind of drifted away, and all the time we'd been recording the second album. We were very keen to get the second album made because the first one was quite good, and we thought we could do one that was perhaps better. It was really just Mark and I, and we've been friends for years and years.
Yeah.
So with the recording, it was just Mark and I recording, and then with the live band, Graham and Mark Davidson, like, you know, it was just something. It was nice. It was a really nice thing to do because, I don't know, once a week I would go up to Mark's place, and we'd moved from North London to South London, so I had to go across London to go up to Mark's place to record these songs. And it was a lot of sitting around for me, to be honest, because I don't know anything about the production. And I tried to have input as much as I could. We basically had the second album to a fairly decent state, and we were playing some of the new songs. The songs that we played live were a mix of old ones and new ones.
Right.
Money was a bit tight, so we'd knocked it back from, I think, sort of 14 or 15 tracks to around 9 or 10. But it never, I don't know, for one reason or another, it never got released. But good things were done. There was a remix made of one of the songs, Soldiers, by Christian Hayes, Big Hayes. It's a guitarist from Levitation. So he did a remix. And then my friend Philippos Tsitsopoulos did a video for it, it's on YouTube, it's amazing. And it was great fun doing it. We all had external pressures, whether it was demands from children or work or financial, you know, I mean, it's hard to do. It was still a kind of side project. We could only commit the amount of time that we could. So I think we were pushing each other. I think I was quite demanding of people, of Mark. You know, I'd make him remix things again and again, because, and then, you know, I mean, if I did a bad job, Mark would say, "I think you should do another take," and we'd keep going. You know, do another take. And he was good at pushing me to do the right take, and then I would make him, with the production, do it again and again and again and again and again. So we were quite demanding on each other, but I think we had to be in order to produce something that was decent. So we had the second album, we were playing live, but eventually it just got, the album never got released, and the band, I think Graham and Mark both had to leave for different reasons, and we tried to find other people, but it was just hard to find people who could commit to it, and then I was finding it quite hard to commit to it myself. So that sort of fizzled out, and then eventually we moved to Greece. So that was it. And then during COVID, which was obviously a struggle for everyone, but especially for the shops, Mark said, "Can we release the album as a digital album?" So yeah, of course we did, and it was really to help keep Flashback going. We weren't working on anything, it was done. So everything was done. It was
just a matter of releasing it.
Yeah, and I didn't even have a way to record anything until today. And I wouldn't even have known how to. That's the truth, is I didn't know how. I wouldn't know how to do it. I just turned up and Mark did all the technical things. It wasn't like there was an ongoing project. It was that we had this album that was there. It was just that Mark said, "Could we release it to help Flashback?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." So we released it as this as the cut down version, onto Spotify, and it sort of, you know, having had the first release, and I was actually in the newsagent, you know, looking at the newspaper like, oh, we've got reviews.
Awesome. Yeah.
And then this one just sort of went into a void, so it was a bit of a disappointment. And obviously it was to try and do a good thing, but you know, by then I think the momentum had died, whatever momentum there was. You know, it was not like we were massively popular. We weren't playing live. We weren't playing live when we released the first album, so we weren't backing that up. And you know, I think some people liked it, but you know, it wasn't. You know, it just sort of came and went. Even with the reviews, like, we had no expectations at all.
Right.
So it was just nice to have made something, and it takes, you know, some courage to put it out.
Absolutely.
Because you have no idea whether it's any good. I mean, like, I don't know, I've been listening to music all my life, and Mark's been working with music all his life, so we had some idea that it was decent enough. But you don't really know, so you think everyone's just going to go, vanity project. So it took some courage to release it, and then to get some reviews and see it sort of justify itself.
It's like a welcome.
Was nice. But the second one I knew was better, but nobody had heard it. Nobody, and I think it's you can get it on Bandcamp, and you can listen to it on Spotify. And I think all the tracks are on YouTube, but just no one's heard it. So finally this year we talk about releasing a vinyl version, which is something I want. I know Mark wants, and that's something I want because I like vinyl. And we were going to release the proper director's cut, 15-track, overblown epic that it is. And it's going to be amazing. So I'm really pleased that we're finally going to get some physical release for this second album, because I think it's better than the first one. And it's impossible to concentrate when you're peering at it like that.
My bad. I'm just trying to make sure that everything's all right with the focus.